Welcome to Good Luck Luke. It is my honor and my pleasure today to have invited my special guest, Kyla Coker, to be here today. It's so interesting because Kyla is actually not actually my direct patient.
Right now.
I
was initially when I came.
We also have been reconnected and we are always, because we take care of our patients like a team. I'm very excited that we can also reconnect this way with you at my Good Luck Luke podcast. So, Kyla, I would really love for you to tell the audience, who you are, why you want to be here today, what story you want to share with us, and so forth.
My name is Kyla Coker, and I'm currently 44 years old. I was in a corporate career back in my early 30s, and before I quit to start my own business, I actually went to a fertility doctor to get my levels tested, to see where I was, get a baseline, and thought, of course, I'll meet somebody pretty soon. And instead of freezing eggs at the time, I waited. And then next time I look up, it's a handful of years later and hadn't met the guy yet. And then decided, okay, I need to start figuring this out. So started going down that path. And I want to talk today about that journey and how it's led me to working here with the team at Generation Next. Because it's been very interesting to see the variety of opinions out there and what feedback we've had along the path. I finally met my person, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the love story, because I know today was also a big day. I catch you today as you're preparing for your next journey, which I will tell the audience in a moment. Lots of our patients have to balance between career, and when you say about corporate career, my medical career, we really focus on our career in the 20s and 30s, and we may not met our significant other until later in life. So I just want to know, how did your story start? Like in your 20s, 30s, I still remember I never thought I was going to have children, even medical school, because it's so hard to even get into medical school, and the school loans and everything. And luckily I met my husband during college, but I have lots of colleagues. They didn't have that, opportunity. So I just want to hear, what happened in your 20s and why now? And
so in my 20s, my degree was geology, and I was very focused on geology in my career path. So I had a very strong, intense corporate job for the first two career paths I had in that job, and then just decided that I would switch from geology to gemology. So I went to GIA, quit the corporate world, and started designing jewelry for private clients. I've been doing jewelry since 2013 with my own business. And like I said, I had gone to check my egg count and see where I was at, knowing I needed to at least get a baseline and understand what that picture looked like before I left the corporate insurance plan. And then looked up and realized, okay, I hadn't met him yet, but then a couple years later met him. So I was 38 when I met him.
I see.
And so later in the years, and we only after the first year, I was still thinking, okay, I need to start moving forward, whether he's interested to join in or not in this process. So one of our first conversations about a year or in a couple months in, I told him, hey, I'm considering freezing embryos, because I knew the statistics of thawing eggs wasn't as good as embryos. So after learning that information, I brought that up to him, and I said, look, I'm going to consider that with a sperm donor, or I'm open to considering that with you if you want to have that conversation.
Right.
And he said, absolutely, let's talk about it. And so we started that conversation. That was New Year's from 19 to 20, so turning into 2020. So fast forward a couple months later, 2020 happens, COVID happens, and I had some consults with the doctor, but most things were shut down for a while. So then we started back up with the process in 2021, went and started meeting with doctors together, and realized we were actually rejected immediately by a few clinics. One in particular that is known to be very successful with their statistics. But they immediately turned us down because my AMH was below 1.3. And they only
that's the cutoff.
And they only recommended egg donor.
I see.
So that was heartbreaking. But I was also very confused, because I remember my AMH when I was 30, when I had it tested before I left the corporate job, was 1.3.
Right.
So I was like, well, okay, why is that the cutoff? Why don't we just try?
And
they weren't even willing to try. So I was going to an acupuncturist at that time, and I told her this, and she said, and had I not been going to her, I would have never known that information, but she said there are clinics and doctors that are willing to try more low-dose approaches for older women. But I had heard this clinic was so good. I was extremely confused why they had rejected me.
Right.
Come to find out, I found another friend. I mentioned it to a girlfriend. She had a friend that I knew as an acquaintance, and she said, you need to call her because she had also been rejected from that clinic.
Oh, okay.
And she had given up on ever being a mother. And
my
so
God.
I called a clinic here in New York that my acupuncturist had recommended me to call.
Were you in New York then, or in?
I was still in Florida.
Florida.
I live in Florida. So, but I reached out to that clinic in New York, started a few rounds with them. They primarily just did Clomid. And then we pushed pause, and then we did 5 rounds with them with Clomid only. And then after that, we then started interviewing and meeting, having consultations with other doctors. And that's how I found you.
I see.
So then we switched here.
Wow, this is an amazing story because did you know why? Did you still know why people would get rejected because of low AMH? Do you know, did they tell you why?
No, they just said.
And what year was this? It was 2020?
That would have been 2021.
So right after COVID,
correct.
I guess.
Yeah.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the bias of not taking diminished ovarian reserve has changed. So I've been practicing now more than a decade. And in this last, I would say 13 to 15 years, at one point, some places I heard, like literally you call them and you say, I'm 40. They don't even know your AMH. You just say I'm 44. It's like, beep. Donor-egg department, they don't even
they won't
entertain
even it.
Because at that time, just calculating the age, you were not yet at 44. You were like 39. But then they cut you off with AMH, And this is where I don't know the clinic, I don't know why, but basically there's some data that's demonstrated. They kind of implying something. It's like an implication. They never tell you, but it's like, you mean low egg count or lower? And 1.3 is not that low. It's not 0.3. It's not 0. When we take patient here under 0.5, 0.08, as long as you're menstruating for us, we still have hope to get pregnant because my med peeve is that even though your quantities may be low, but quantity does not equal to quality. And yes, Dr. Najat and I and Dr. Hay himself have seen it. We have seen patients with AMH 0.08 baby. So AMH is not a value that should justify or judge that you cannot get pregnant with your own egg. So some of the data has demonstrated that some clinics may want to up their success rate. So that may explain why because they may say a certain age, but they cannot say that, but they say AMH because you cannot discriminate either on certain patients. Certain offices also, they do not do the retrieval if you don't have 3 follicles or more. And so that is also frustrating because some of our patients only have 1 or 2 eggs. And
that's happened to me.
And so if you keep on canceling, then the patient will never get it. Right. And yes, the success rate may not be high because I would not say because of AMH, but because of the age of the patient. At 40, 41, 42, we're talking about 25% getting a normal embryo. And so it is interesting that because of that, they may not accept those patients and that's the sad part. And that's my main peeve about the world of fertility. Who's governing this, all these IVF centers, and is it success rate will now not take someone who may be 5%. But that 5% means a lot to that human because you got her the baby and she's going to be 100%.
And what's, I think, the most frustrating now that I try to preach to all my friends and all my girlfriends, and I'm a pretty open book about fertility in my experience, has been because I feel like those clinics, even if they're not willing to accept those women, they should be at least educating those women that there are clinics out there and doctors out there that will. And they're not. And that's what's really shocking is how many women will walk away from that experience and assume that they have to only choose egg donor and they won't go seek out to think that other doctors would even consider a different route. So that's really heartbreaking.
And there's like an unresolved chapter or two because when it's unresolved, it's hard. And I talked to
So I try to tell as many friends as possible so they can tell other people. I'm like, no, there are doctors that are willing to work with you. And it's every single person is different. So at least go try and let's see if you can have any success.
And there's also different states, also different. Like New York City, obviously, there's like a hub. There's so many in New York City. Options. It's very competitive. I think California, same things like the coast. I do see patients. I don't know, actually, you should tell me. Did you try to seek fertility care in Florida?
I did.
So what, because I do have lots of Florida patients fly to me. So what is the climate? Is it hard to find fertility center? Like, what is it down there? But since I see, when I Google, it seems like there are lots down there.
We are on the West Coast, or in Tampa Bay.
Oh.
And the ones that we consulted with that we found were all more focused on a blanket protocol. They weren't willing to work on more of like a mini IVF protocol and approach. And because I didn't have a higher follicle count or a higher AMH, the majority of them said, look, you have maybe 1 to 3% of success. And so we aren't willing to take that risk and work with you. So we weren't able to find any doctor in our area to work with us.
So same, in similar ways, the same story.
It was the same story. From Florida. Yeah. And we consulted with, I think it was about 13 doctors until I think you may have been the 13th.
Oh, wow.
Or one of those within the 13. And so we felt like this was the right fit.
Well, thank you for entrusting us, and hopefully we are waiting for that day.
Yes,
and
we aren't at the finish line yet.
Yeah,
but we have tried different things and adjusted, and I feel like that's what we have both really appreciated about working with you guys has been, okay, this didn't work, let's try this next time, let's try this, and let's try this different approach. And that's either, day 3, different approaches. Even the Chloe incubator that you guys have has given us more success, just to be able to get the embryos to continue growing.
How further. Do you? So that's the audience.
Sure.
So we have a new embryoscope. I feel like the AI term has been overused, but yes, it's an AI embryoscope. Right now, it's still not everywhere. I think we have the one's first clinic. They can have a video of the embryo development. It is totally transparent. I know lots of patients are like, what are you doing with those things happen, especially when embryo didn't get to success rate or didn't get culture out. But now some of my patients will already, Dr. I know, only one embryo make to blast. I see all the development. So I feel like the AI, it is not a replacement of PGTA. So even though it's a high score, doesn't mean that it's great. But when patients are banking for day 3 embryos or blasts untested, we have found usefulness to it. Secondly, when patients have 2 normal embryo and they decide which one to do, we have done it where we chose the day 7, which supposedly she chose the day 6, but because of the embryo score was better, she got pregnant with the day 7. That's how we use the embryoscope. I want to hear kind of how do you feel about the embryoscope? Was it, I don't know, transparency sometimes helps some patients. That's why some patients didn't want to even pay more money for it because they're like, I don't want to look at it. But everyone's different. So
we thought the price was reasonable for adding that on. But I think the beauty of it was, yes, you get to see once the egg is fertilized, then they put it in under the scope. And so you get to actually see overnight over the next few days as it multiplies into the different cells and as it grows. And so, every handful of hours, I would open it back up and refresh it and then see, okay, did it multiply? Oh, I think it made it to 4. I think it's at 6. Okay, I think it made it to 8.
You become a great embryologist. Yeah,
I'm definitely not an embryologist. But the main beauty in it is not only do you get to see it, but also for us, when we were talking to Dr. Broussard, our biggest challenge from the other clinic to also the first few rounds here has been ours continue to stop growing at day 3 and we can't get them to day 5. And out of, I think it was about, I have notes, I think it was around 15, we got 2 to day 5 out of 15 eggs. And so then once we had it in the Chloe, Dr. Broussard said that sometimes they tend to grow better and longer, perhaps to day 5, if they wouldn't have made it for a woman that wasn't able to get it to day 5 previously. And that's because she said, I guess they're not taking it out as often. So it's a little bit more enclosed and protected. So it's a better environment than the other incubators, but being able to visually watch it was very helpful because I guess the scale, it gives it a grade. And then we were able to discuss with her what are the chances it will make it to day 5 versus should we just go ahead and freeze on day 3. So that helped educate us. In December, we did have 2 that were both predicted to make it to day 5, but we went ahead and froze one on day 3. The other one went to day 5.
Wow.
And then we had another one recently that we froze it on day 3.
You know, we have lots of different kind of treatments, such as Chloe, and then one of the other treatments, the PRP.
Right.
I think I would have to say, compare me and other doctors, especially Dr. Hayes heading the study, because it's true, some of my patients did gain antral follicle count. We were very skeptical. That's why RB research was launched about 2 years ago. That we are now starting to get the data, but still not enough volume of patient to make a standard statement. So that's the hard part of medical research, just for the audience. It's not easy to do a great randomized control medical research. So however, when we are looking at case series or looking at what PRP has done, I just want to hear from the patient experience. How do you feel after procedure or before? What have it make a difference in your feeling? Because some patients, oh my God, it was the PRP. You know, I had a couple podcasts where patients like, yes, you know, especially when she was pregnant and she told us that. Yeah, I want to hear like how have PRP got you more side effects or anything that have from a patient perspective?
Sure. So after coming to Generation Next, I worked with you for a few rounds, and we had similar where they didn't want to keep growing past day 3. So then you recommended and suggested that we should try PRP. So we took a little break and then came back and started working with Dr. Haid, and we did our first rounds of PRP in September of 25. So just a handful, 6 months ago or so. And so did first round of PRP and then did a handful of cycles. And by the 3rd cycle, we definitely saw an uptick in follicle count. So in December, we ended up doing 3 retrievals all in December. And that was also luteal phase because I just kept having more follicles pop up. And so he said, come back, let's do this again. So 3 retrievals all within 1 cycle was a lot. But we were like, you know, if we're going to make it, let's get what we can.
Yes.
So I feel like my body didn't necessarily feel like it had like a huge side effect. My period was definitely a lot stronger, much stronger in those cycles after doing PRP. I did a total, I want to say it was like 3 PRPs, and then we took a break and did a cycle without it, and then we realized, okay, maybe that is what affected the uptick in follicle count, so let's do another PRP. So we did 1 more and then did another cycle. So overall, we think it started to increase and help based on what Dr. Haid saw, but as of my body, besides the stronger cycles, I wouldn't say that I felt like I was affected in any other negative way whatsoever.
Well, thank you. I never really had a very asking patient experience how they feel exactly. And some patients tell me they do feel like more follicles. So there's data already out from Dr. Haid's when we submitted to ASRM is that they have increased antral follicle count. But obviously you guys don't come here for more follicle count. You want is the baby. So that is the part that is we still need more time to prove. So Kyla, I know we reconnected, and recently there's some blizzards here in New York City. How do you finagle in Florida? I mean, it's amazing, and you have a very busy career, and I bet your partner, or both of you. And I still remember the flight. He had to go somewhere in the West Coast, and then you had to go somewhere. And it was at midnight. I'm like dissecting. Wait, who's going where? Should we do the trigger shot or should we just have lots of sex? I'm like, okay, maybe not coming Saturday. Because that Saturday was the blizzard, right? It was, and then I said Sunday.
And we hadn't been paying attention to the weather. And
until that.
It was we needed to trigger. But then we realized, okay, it's
so that was
blizzard.
Thursday night, right?
Should we hold it off and wait until after the blizzard?
Or before the blizzard, right.
What do we need to do?
So the blizzard, we didn't know was coming Saturday, Sunday, but there lots of rumors. I guess the news media, everyone's like, there's a blizzard. And no one really tells you, as all of you in the audience know, no one say exactly 6 a.m. we're going to snow, you know. So we know it was before. And then I would try to make a decision for you, Sunday or Saturday versus I said, well, Sunday is bad. Well, so we know already as we go closer.
Because I called the nurse's line and at night and I explained to the nurse.
It was like 11, I don't know.
It was like 11 p.m. And I called the nurse and whoever was on call, she was like, let me just put you through to the doctor on staff. I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so bad. And then you answered, I'm like, hi, Dr. Luke. And then I put you on speaker, but you were extremely helpful and it was entertaining for both of us because we were just laughing because you were like, hold on, I'm trying to figure this out. I totally get that. We're kind of
I chat to be the weather storm first.
Oh,
because I didn't know the weather. No one said anything.
Right.
The kids are still going to school.
It was all of a sudden on the news that evening, right along when I was supposed to trigger, and we saw that pop up, and we're like, well, should we or should we not? What should we do? We're trying to navigate.
And then and you're also Dr. Hay said, well, Dr. Hay may not be up right now. I said it was 11 o'clock.
Right.
And I said, better either you do it now, and then I think your partner has to go somewhere. Right. So, well, not Monday.
Right.
Dr. Luke.
We had to figure this out. He had some big conference with a massive meeting that he couldn't miss. So we were like, can we do this and make this in time and then get out before the storm? So you were very helpful to figure it out.
At the end, what happened? I know after the call, so you came.
Yeah, we came. And then we literally flew out that night and we got out, and then the storm hit by the next morning. Or I think it may have hit even overnight. So we missed that just by something. Yeah,
because then why we just come, because that's what his plan is.
Right.
Just trigger, we'll see you Saturday morning. You're still safe. You can get back out. So
but honestly, through all the fertility cycles that we have done, I've tried to not stress. I feel like things like the snowstorm and other things just pop up. We had a hurricane in Florida at one point during one of the cycles, and I found out the airports were all going to shut down within a certain day, and I needed a trigger. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go ahead and fly out now, and then just wait a day or two before I trigger in New York. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So things haven't always been easy, and it feels like it's been difficult, but I try to just do what I'm supposed to be doing for the cycle and try to let everything else stress-wise not compile, because it's no added stress is going to be good.
No,
so there's nothing I can worry about. So if I'm just doing what you guys are telling us to do, then that's all I can do.
Well, this is amazing that you share your experience. I know this now rolling to the end, and I just had kind of a question about the choice of choosing us, which is, I think, my passion has always been diminished ovarian reserve. I love to beat the odds. I'm an immigrant myself, and lots of people say, Janelle, you cannot do this. Janelle, you cannot. And I also see the suffering, not the result of not able to do convention, I can only do conventional cycle, because as you know, it was one point medication is better now, this 2026 February, and medication really helped lots of our patients, but it was usually $5,000 just to do one cycle, and patient would get 1 or 2 eggs. Oh, no, worse, canceled.
Right, canceled. I've had a friend that got her entire cycle canceled because she didn't have 5 for them to go in and retrieve, but yet we've been able to go in and retrieve just 1 even.
And then we were able to make embryos, and yes, we have had some of our really big success with 13 retrievals, but not we have 3 cancels, so it's not actual retrieval, so 3 or 4 cancel cycle, and then we got 2 embryo, and I hope that will be your story. She got 2 day 3 after 13 months. But our organizations, which means the authoritative body, that government, they don't favor that. They never like us when they come, and sometimes they dissect our data. They'll be like, why are you doing 13? So you're only 1%. Because when you divide 13 attempt, they don't, when you label IVF, they already beep. They in the system is IVF. So now if the patient converts to sex, it's a cancel cycle to them. Right. And so I think that also drives why not many centers are still open to this, even to now, after 10 years of practice. I thought, we're not that special anymore. But in terms of, we're still a little bit less special, because not many people are still going forward with a patient with less eggs. How did you feel by, as someone who going to these, when you were in some ways very helpless because you're trying to have a child? It is later in life. It's not when you're 31, 10 years later in your late 30s and doing this. How imperative is this to have different type of protocol, and how important for a patient? And how do you advise women who are now, I've met some patients of 38, 39, they're making those decisions.
Right. Well, it's everything when you're going through this process. And I feel like it's not just for women that are going through this process. I think women should be planning ahead, which is another whole topic, which I'll talk about in a second. But at the beginning of this, we thought we were actually going to be preserving for a second child. And then being able to just have sex and get our first child. Soon into it, we realized, okay, we may just be lucky if we get 1. So the whole process, I think people, when they haven't gone into the fertility journey yet, they may think that, oh, it's going to be fine. It won't be me. I'll be okay. I'll have success immediately. It won't be a challenge. And you have very high hope, but then you start to realize with every experience in the process, okay, expectations have to be modified and changed. So just being able to find doctors in a clinic that are willing to work with you and pivot in those moments is so important, because I've spoken to women even over the last week that are switching from other clinics to different clinics, as well as one that's switching to you guys.
Oh.
And because her previous doctor wasn't even offering PRP, her previous doctor wouldn't offer day 3. And I told her my story, and she said, so she just had a call with you guys in the last week or 2. So I just feel like I wish more women would be knowledgeable of the options when they're going through the fertility process. But then also, a lot of my friends that are single, I've been encouraging them, go freeze your eggs. Don't just freeze one batch of eggs. Maybe do a couple rounds. Let's start with one, take a break, do a second one. And I know Dr. Haid had an article recently about how important it is where women not just rely maybe on one egg freezing batch, because you don't know how many you're going to have out of that. I've had some friends that had 20 by the time they thawed them and then actually fertilized them. They had 5, they've put in 2 or 3, they're not working. They had a couple left.
Yes.
So women need to be more aware of the challenges, and even if you feel like you may have a partner that you're going to find in the next few years, wonderful, but go ahead and freeze some eggs. Freeze, if you can, a second batch of eggs. And the wonderful, beautiful thing about Generation Next and the pricing has been that it's reasonable and approachable. And as I've told some people, the pricing difference from here to other places, they're in shock. So I feel like that's another reason why we've been here and been able to do multiple rounds and attempts where a lot of other clinics, it's unapproachable.
Well, thank you so much, really, for coming in today. Yeah. I always want to tell patients that really the differences between why we do what we do is because I really want to put medicine to go with nature. Because when you have diminished ovarian reserve, the nature is already there. The saying that it's diminished. I was equated to a horse that's tired. You beat the horse, run faster. They don't run. It's a paradoxical thinking, like more meds. You know, a child doesn't want to study, make them study more. Like, it doesn't go with the nature. Right. And so how do you do it? Well, you have to cater back to nature. They may respond better with an intrinsic FSH, which is really the secret, like with the oral pills and things. But cannot dose it crazy. Like I see some conventional cycles do, like they do 4 pills of Clomid. Oh, forget it. The ovary is going to go crazy. The brain is going to go crazy.
I actually have a note from one of the first times I had a call with you. And I wrote that down because what I said on here was, I said, it was September 7th of 23. And I said, we had a call with Dr. Luke in New York and heard her take on my levels. It's refreshing to hear her address issues that other doctors just brush off. And I said, one example of topics she's willing to bring up directly is how she's cautious with not giving too much medicine so that we don't overstimulate the ovaries and have them shut down. She uses the term shut down, and it's something that many doctors won't say. And I've actually heard other doctors refute that it's even possible to overstimulate and shut down. So I think that
that's exactly. Right. That is why I have such much joy, because especially when the generations of doctors are changing now, and I think with us here, more here, Generation X, as we're also cultivating the new generations, we are very focused in how do we work with the body, because I truly believe woman's body, woman's wisdom. So. Well, Kyla, it is a pleasure seeing you, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kyla. You're so sweet, Kyla. I remember now some of our conversation back then. I can't believe you wrote everything down. This is amazing.
I wrote them down as I went on, just kind of even as a journal along the way to like emotionally, like,
you do that for the stress and
just like remember